All right. Are we live? Just message me, guys, just to see if you can hear me, see me, feel me even. I don't know. Just want to make sure. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for joining today. I am really, really honored and excited that we have a very, very special guest, someone who I've watched a lot of his videos over the past, I would say, year now on my dear friend Kushal's channel. And I think the first video I watched was something regarding is it the end of Hinduism or something like that, and then the Turkic invasions, and then architecture, and then other stuff as well. So I've been watching, sort of, kind of been watching Abhijit's videos, and I've learned so much. And I must say that you have a very unique way of conveying information. There's a lot of sort of a deep information, a lot of wealth of knowledge, but also you have the odd homophobic joke, which is also really good as well. So you kind of balance it out. But you yourself have a very, very gone.
Being a homosexual myself, it's like two black people are allowed to use the N word.
Exactly.
So I'm allowed to use it. Yeah.
You're allowed to use it, of course. And I also noticed a lot of those kind of jokes as well. You're white, you're black. So that's good. I'm happy to do that as well. I'm happy to go there as well, whatever it may be, But you yourself have quite an interesting, I think, I don't know if you want to say rise to fame, if you want to put it that way.
Or infamy, as the case.
Infamy, right. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself, but before I go on, thank you everyone for joining, and happy Diwali to those people who celebrate it, and just to everyone. But Abhijit, thank you for coming on, and how you doing?
Thanks for having me, Waleed. It's always great being on any podcast that's mad enough to have me. So awesome. Welcome to the Mad Club. Yeah,
exactly. No, I think you've summarized it correctly, because I do have a lot of respect for you, because of your, like you said, rise to infamy. I think you're the whole subject around free speech. Just before we go on, free speech is very, very important. People, I think in the West, we've kind of taken it for granted, and now we kind of don't have it, but we kind of do have it. We're not really sure where that line is now. So So I guess let's address the massive elephant in the room, which is what's happening in Palestine, Israel, what's happening in the Middle East, and the kind of Pandora's box that's opened as a result. I think it's opened up many different, you could say, it's made the battle lines almost crystal clear. There's no sort of going back from this, unfortunately. And I think the West has been in denial, or maybe ignoring certain issues which they kind of knew, and we have known for many years, nothing new, maybe 20, 30 years, but now it's all come to the surface, and it's undeniable now. And I guess, I know you've probably been asked this many times before, but what's your sort of reaction? Obviously, you're in India, but when you look at what's happening on the streets of the major Western capitals, what's your kind of like gut feeling? Like you think like, damn, this is beyond recovery, or is there a way forward? What do you think?
No, I think sitting in India, we when it comes to a sort of academic knowledge of Islam or the West or terrorism, we're terrible. Indian writing on Islam is some of the shittiest you'll come across. Indian writing on terrorism is absolutely the shittiest you'll ever come across. Indian writing on leftism is the absolute pits.
Right.
But Indians have a kind of a tactile, they're very good at this kind of tactile feeling of certain issues. And I think a lot of what we're seeing in the West is this intersectionality coming home to roost. This sort of alliance of gripe, as I call it, the Rainbow Coalition of Gripe, which is basically, and it's not new. This is the funny thing. This is something we saw during the Russian Revolution. The Russian revolutionaries always used to, support all the mullahs in Central Asia, saying, oh, the Tsar was the horrible guy who oppressed them. They need to be liberated. They need socialist freedom, etc., etc. And the first thing they did when they came to power was shove off all the mullahs to concentration camps, shoot them, God knows do what, and completely de-Turkified Central Asia and made them think of themselves as Western folk. And for me, growing up in the USSR, I used to think it's fantastic. Yay. This is, I used to think I was white. I still sometimes think I'm white.
Now I understand where this comes from. Okay, now.
Yeah. So I identify as being blonde-haired and blue-eyed. invading Ukrainian Aryan who's
Right.
come on horseback 3,500 years back to civilize all the dark native savages of India, kind of thing,
Of
right?
course.
But and so for me, growing up in the USSR, it was like, oh my God, look, we brought, and I used to be a communist, so
Mm.
young communist, 7-year-old, 6, 7, tin pot little communist, thinking we brought civilization to all these people. This is the beneficial civilizing influence of the West. And when I grew up, I got this. I think it was in Bangladesh somewhere where I was again repeating this line on how wonderful the USSR was. It completely de-radicalized and whatever, whatever. And they're like, Abhijit, do you even realize it was a complete wipeout of culture? There is no culture left out there. And I do remember going to Uzbekistan when it was the Uzbek Soviet Socialist Republic. And then I went back as a much, much older man about 6, 7 years back. And it was truly bizarre because this guy saw me in a kurta pajama and he's like, oh, you're an Indian from India. He takes me into the madrasa of Ulugh Beg, who was Timur's grandson. And he gives me vodka and salo, which is basically salted pork.
Oh
And I'm
wow.
thinking
Okay.
of how bizarre this is. I'm
Mm.
sitting in the madrasa of Ulugh Beg and having salo and vodka. There's
Wow.
something very discordant out here. The other thing was, there were many things intersecting. My entire study of this starts with uh, this lovely friend of mine called Solin von Kaufmann Turkestanski. Her great, 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 great granddad was Genahal Konstantin von Turkestanski, who conquered Central Asia for the Tsar. And the Tsarist policy was just let them be. The Soviets came up with this policy that they needed compassion. They were being oppressed. Everything was oppression Olympics. And you've seen that repeat itself. You see this in the Iranian Revolution, where the first people, there was an alliance between communists and the mullahs in Iran. And the first people that the Khomeini starts executing are all the communists who are centered around Mashhad at that point of time. Right. So you see this pattern repeat over and over again. So when I see this pattern repeating, I'm not surprised. It's this intersectionality nonsense that has become extremely dangerous, that encourages the worst, the basest instincts in everybody. It creates victimhood and narratives. And see, the problem is it's mental cocaine, it's mental
Mm.
crystal meth, because if somebody tells you you are not responsible for your own fault, somebody else is always responsible for it. Society is always responsible
Right.
for it.
Right.
That's a very, very powerful mental control mechanism. Right. If you
Yeah.
remember,
Yeah.
this is also what Justin Trudeau did when he got caught doing blackface not once, but 2 or 3 times. If
Several
you read his
times.
speech, he doesn't apologize. He blames it on society.
Okay.
He says it's social norms that made me think it was okay to do it.
Wow.
He never apologized. Go back and read his speech. He never apologized for it. So
Well,
it's sort of
I find it funny when he said there may be more pictures that come out.
there
We don't
might
know
be.
how many there could be. No, that's a very good point around. Yeah, there is this sort of what do you want to call it? Sort of shrugging of accountability or responsibility, and the fault lies somewhere out there, usually with some sort of abstract patriarchy or some sort of power structure, whatever it is. And you can, I'm sure you can expound on this further, but there's obsession with power structures and patriarchies and hierarchies and all this kind of stuff as well, and that kind of needs to be broken down. I don't know if that's the reason why they've taken that kind of thinking to genders. We're going to break down the structure of genders as well,
But
um
that's exactly what they do. They create
mm,
jargon and mumbo jumbo.
yeah.
Lenin used to say this, that every idea is worth 1,000 pages of theory. Now, usually a theory, I've always been taught, if you can't condense something down to a page or 2 pages, it's
Mm.
not worth the paper it's written on.
Yeah, yeah.
The problem is when you write 1,000 pages of theory and only 1 or 2 pages are valid, the remaining 998 pages can be bullshit, and they're
Mm.
mostly dangerous bullshit. So, what ends up happening is two things. One is you've concocted a whole load of bullshit. You are creating problems where none existed. You're imagining structures and oppression, and you have to
Mm.
fill in. It's like a word limit kind of thing where you've got to stuff the words
Yeah.
in. The
Yeah.
problem with that then becomes that it's when you read the book, you don't know which are the two relevant pages and you get bogged down in the
Mm.
998 pages. Now, maybe 1% of the population can see through and find those two pages. Most of the population sees the remaining 998 pages. So there's a complete saturation of the humanities with this kind of left wing jargon overwriting. It also creates a statistical problem wherein you are 98% more likely to only read leftist humanities and fall for leftist explanations. And the
So,
third,
so,
very,
sorry, go on. Sorry, go on. Third one. I want to come back to the second point, but yeah, the third one. Yeah.
so see the second point, really simple. It's if there's only 2 pages of logic and 998 pages of bullshit,
Oh,
you'll
okay.
get
Yeah, yeah,
caught
yeah.
up. It's just
Mm.
statistical. You'll never find those 2 pages, and you'll
Right.
obsess over something in the 998 pages. So
Mm.
you're just saturated with 98 pages of bullshit. Not everybody can find diamonds in coal.
No, 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 no. And
So
we're
it's
assuming
like
that
that.
and we're assuming that they are diamonds in the first place, which is not
We
always the
assume,
case.
we
Yeah,
assume,
exactly.
which,
Even assuming that they are
which may
exactly.
even,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Even then. Yeah.
Uh, yeah. And the third thing that it does is something uh, very insidious. It is deliberately meant to confuse in a way that's best explained in Ayn Rand's Fountainhead,
Mm.
Emperor's New Clothes thing. It's profound. Why do you think it's profound? Because you didn't understand it. Uh, and this is why I always got told when I was teaching at uni, uh, if you can't explain it in one or
Yeah.
two pages,
Yeah.
you're a useless professor.
Yeah.
You're a useless teacher. So they don't do that. And so they make these kids think that this is something profound, uh, and each kid settles on some piece of bullshit out there. Some of them might actually find the diamond, but mostly it is a 98% probability that they'll settle for the bullshit.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And before we get back onto the whole cultural, stuff, whatever it is, I think there might obviously you might know my background is I was Muslim, I went to Muslim school, I left Islam at 24, whatever it is. But I do remember when I was sort of kind of studying Islam, whether it was at school or independently or whatever it may be, the higher you go, right? Once you get past the basics, sort of, this is God. They say, oh, this is what's the word? Metaphysical. This is something that the sheikhs only
Mhm.
understand. And
Yes.
then, this is something that the imams only understand. This is something which Peer Sabs only understand. Like, okay, well, what is it that they're saying? And they're not saying anything that interesting or that nothing that's actually worth printing. But the way they are, and then the Rasul did this, and he did that, and the Imam he did this, and sort of like you said, sort of create this aura of mystique around it, and it's almost like people want that. They don't want a clear explanation that this is what you do, or this way. No, they want to not be able to understand it because then it's special. Then only a select few of individuals can interpret this, and they have access to this knowledge. So I see a lot of sort of parallels between what you're saying in terms of 2%, that's kind of logical. Then 98% is just bollocks, right? And I
Yeah.
think there is a lot of that in these sort of when you get into fiqh and jurisprudence and theology, and it's just gobbledygook. A lot of it is just gobbledygook and can be summarized into two
It's
pages.
it is gobbledygook, but sometimes don't get alarmed by this. I used to find ISIS or Daesh, whatever you want to call it,
Mm.
jurisprudence to be quite fascinating, really. Because if I were to ever become Muslim, I would join ISIS.
Okay, could you
And I'll tell
explain?
you why.
Yeah.
Because I just found their ability to legally stretch points to be and bring
Mm.
it in consonance with Western laws very interesting. Because at that time there were only two or three real schools. There was Al Azhar in Cairo. There was
Mm.
this whole set of ulema sitting in Saudi Arabia, and there was ISIS coming up as the sort of rebel
Yeah.
thing that considered the Saudi ulema and the Egyptian Al Azhar to be sold out. And of course, nobody takes the Barelvis and the Deobandis seriously because, as per
No.
Ibn Taymiyyah, they're all inferior. I mean, unless you, and I kind of get where Ibn Taymiyyah is coming from. I actually do understand
Okay.
where he's coming from.
I want to revisit this point later on. But go on. Go on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
But what happens is there's this new kid on the block. And, for me, this is going to sound so horrible, but you remember Muat al Kasasbeh, the Jordanian pilot who ISIS burnt alive?
Okay. Yeah. I think that rings a
I
bell. Yeah.
They put him in a cage. He was in an F-16 bombing ISIS
Okay.
positions. He got shot down, or his plane failed or something, and they put him in a cage, doused him with petrol, and burnt him alive on live TV.
Wow.
Anyway, uh, I found the judgment really interesting because it said, "You burn our villages and our cities." This guy is a combatant. He is not an innocent victim. And therefore, the way he has burnt us, we will burn you in keeping with the laws of proportionality. And they brought in Islamic jurisprudence on proportionality and things like that, which I found sexy. Dare I say it? So,
Yeah.
Uh, look, I really enjoy theology and bullshit. Like, I
Mm.
love going through bullshit just to see how much bullshit people can come up with.
Yeah, no,
Like,
I agree with you.
it's
It's fun. It's fun if you do it like
it's fun.
leisurely. Yeah, leisurely.
Yeah,
But when
yeah,
it becomes real, then it's quite scary.
yeah. So, for example, if you read the 95 Theses of Luther, Martin Luther, that he, nailed
Nailed to
up
the
on
yeah,
the church of, what was it, Württemberg or Bamberg or
yeah.
whatever, it's all bullshit. I
Mm.
mean, you read it and you're like, dude, what the hell are you talking about? I mean, these points aren't even relevant. Like, if
Mm.
you go to, things like monophysites versus Arianism versus the Council of Nicaea and things like that, you're like, how are these points of religion even being debated? So as it is, the humanities tends to produce a lot of bullshit that we pass off
Mm.
as it's profound. It's what you call over your pay grade in this day and age. But the left excels at it. See, they've made a science out of it. Uh, uh, Humanities, I think, came up with the idea of bullshitting, and the leftists took it to a science and an art at the same time.
Right, right. Fair enough. Now, that's I suppose a good start to what I'm going to ask. So you mentioned at the beginning that you've seen this leftist these patterns before, whether it's in Russia or in other countries as well. How does it end? Like, if we're going through this now in the West, what's the next step? What's the next 2-3 steps? How are we going to get out of this, or can you even get out of this?
You don't get out of this unless you recapture the humanities. And the problem with the right is the right has a huge problem globally with doing primary research. The left considers everything important. See, they consider farmers' markets important. They consider the bare breastedness of sub Saharan women as a cultural milieu to be important, and they produce 1,000 papers on that.
So
They
so
will
sorry,
go
Jack.
and
Can I ask, what does the right consider important, or does it? I
I
mean,
don't know. It's so local. The left is global. The right is so local. It is so boutique and unique to every single country, to every single geography, to every single region. So it's first there's a great economies of scale with left wing thought because it's globally applicable. The right is a fractured, fractionalized market, constantly possibly at war with each other. A Muslim right winger in Iran will hate a Hindu right winger from India who will hate an American
ah,
Bible Belt right winger somewhere else. And for each of us, our research priorities would be different. Our interpretation uh, uh, of
wow.
any situation would be different. We don't have the resources and the global reach to pull together and study the phenomenon of bare breasted women in tribal sub Saharan Africa, whereas the leftist in China, in Russia, in Greece, in UK, in America, in Canada, in Alaska, all think the same. which is why you will have Yanis Varoufakis, that dunce of a finance
Yeah.
minister who failed
He's really
Greece.
annoying. I find him really annoying. Yeah,
He's
yeah,
super annoying.
yeah.
Literally going, he gave that interview this week saying that, China is more humanistic than America, has a more humanistic
Unbelievable.
approach to governance than America.
Wow.
But see, they'll justify this, even though the left has killed what, 6, 7 times more people than extreme rightists have. And that's assuming you even assume that Mussolini and
Mm.
Hitler were rightist, which they were not. They were called
They were left.
national
Yes, yes,
socialists,
exactly,
you know.
exactly. And
So,
what? Just on that Yanis guy, did you when he was asked about the Palestine Israel thing? He goes, "Oh, this is the fault of Europeans. This is the fault of white Europeans." I'm like, hang on a second, son. I mean, this is when you were just saying about shirking responsibility. I mean, that was like, really? Are you serious? You're going to blame everything on Europe? They've got rivalries dating back thousands of years, like centuries. But no, it's Europe's fault. But anyway, okay, fair enough. So that's actually a very interesting point that you make. I never really thought about it like that. That the right wing or a right wing person, I don't know, Iran is not the same as a right wing person in Texas versus someone in India, but the left is, and
in
I think
fact,
that
they'll hate each
they'll hate.
other,
Yes.
and they'll actually find it easier to make alliances with the global left on an opportunistic basis than they will with each other. So it's sheer market consolidation versus
Mm.
market fractionalization.
So okay, so I want to challenge that point, and I think this might have been happening the first time. As in, I think now the right may be starting to play that same game, because I remember Brexit.
Hmm.
Nigel Farage going to America with Donald Trump. Now, what has America got to do with Brexit? Literally nothing. But they recognize it's a rebel vote. It's a fu to the elite, as elite system, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
And then you've also got now it's like centrist or right wing conservative people in the UK are pro-Israel because they don't want to be pro-Palestine, because pro-Palestine means being pro-left in this country. So there is a kind of, and this is actually one of the points I mentioned in the chat before, the interconnectedness of now all these events, which we would, like 50 years ago, what would a British person really care about Palestine, Israel? Maybe unless you're really into politics, or maybe if you've got some sort of, like, if you are Jewish or are Muslim, maybe, but the common person wouldn't give a crap, really. I don't think so. But now everyone seems to sort of have an opinion on it, because they understand, well, if I support this team here, that must mean I have to support that team there.
Yeah.
So maybe, do you think that the right has
But
kind of playing this game since Brexit? I think so anyway.
even before Brexit, but that's kind of been this Anglophone. Uh, it's an Anglophone connect that's always
Right.
existed. It doesn't extend beyond the Anglophone. So, Australia loves to think of itself as the 51st state of America. Britain has never gotten over its colonial hangover. Oh, you're still the native savages that we colonized 200 years back, kind of America. So America also feels this kinship with Britain, this kinship with Australia. New Zealand people don't really care if it exists. I mean,
Yeah.
like they're more sheep than people out there. So
Yeah.
it's and kind of Canada, right? I mean, Canada is just assumed
exactly.
that where America goes, Canada is kind of like the afterthought. So what ends up happening is there always has been, surprisingly, this recognition uh, amongst the Anglophone of who are linked and who are not. When I was living in Australia, it was always the case that Australian American ties were always stronger when it was the Republicans and the Liberal, which is to say the Conservative Party it's called the Liberals in Australia. So were in power than if it was Republicans in America and Labor in Australia.
Right.
Right. And if it was the Democrats and Labor, it used to work fine. So there was always this sort of ideological underpinning that we always saw out there, which had started happening long, 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 long back. If you remember, I landed up in Australia when the invasion of Iraq happened in 2001.
Three. Three, was it? 2003. Anyway, so I thought it was
No, it was
2003.
one.
Anyway, one. Okay.
Afghanistan was three. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, sure.
Anyway, so what ends up happening is that this whole John Howard at that time, who was the
Australian,
Australian
yeah.
Liberal Party, let's call them the Tories, just so that everybody gets what we're talking about. The Australian Tories, if you want to call them that, were completely pro-America. The people criticizing it were Labour, and at that time was the Labour leader. He was a complete nut job. I forget. It was before Kevin Rudd. Kevin Rudd himself was a nut job, but leave that aside. There were people before him who were nut jobs as well. All these, workers' union type folks. They criticized it. Surprisingly, in Britain, though, you had Tony Blair, who desperately wanted, he was trying to rebuild the Labour Party. And that's where New Labour comes about.
New
That they're
Labour,
not
yeah,
about
yeah.
industrial action and strikes and all of that, which is what Margaret Thatcher had indelibly kind of black marked them with. That this is the party of economic decline, this is the party of strikes, this is the party of strife, etc., etc. And Tony Blair was trying to build that up, so he had to crawl up George W. Bush's ass.
Yeah.
So that was kind of different. But we've seen this alignment happen slowly for a long time. It's not been new. Globally, I don't think it's possible, simply because, simple example, take Douglas Murray, right? I love Douglas Murray in equal measure, and I disagree with him in equal measure. I think he gets it horribly wrong. And that comes from a lack of nuance. You see, all great empires do a lot of good and they do a lot of bad. But Douglas Murray, being on the right in the UK, can only see the good the British Empire did, and he can't see the bad. Okay, and this is every empire. There is no empire on earth which hasn't done a lot of good and a lot of bad. Again, in India, the right would see the bad the British Empire did. Though where I come from, Bengal, the British Empire was our savior. People don't talk about this, but for us, the British liberated us from Turkish rule, which was horrible for us. But surprise, surprise, because they also industrialized us the most. Bengal people forget. People forget at the time of independence, India had the highest industrial capacity of any Asian country at that point of time, except maybe Japan, right? But they industrialized us, and that is where the greatest nationalistic sentiment happened. And then it was deindustrialized by an independent India, deindustrialized it, and it's also where communism came about the first after that. But there's always going to be that hatred of your colonial oppressor. Should it have been handled better? Yes. Is there a midway path to be found? Yes. But Douglas Murray doesn't make it easier. And our folks here also don't make it easier, because he's completely brainwashed into his rule Britannia worldview. And the same Indian right that loves to hate on Jawaharlal Nehru and the Congress Party are completely brainwashed by the entire British atrocity narrative in India, not looking at the good the British did either.
Right. So there is this sort of, okay, just to kind of make sure I understand. Outside of the Anglosphere, there is a real lack of unity between right-winged thinkers or people, you could say. And is so for taking India and Britain as an example, because obviously due to their shared history of colonialism, that makes it near impossible, are you saying, to sort of be on the same foot or the same page?
No, I think I do think it's possible, but it requires a lot of sitting down and academic study to do that, with money and university connections that the right does not have. Because all your humanities academia is controlled by the left, be it in India, be it in the UK. You can't just get scholarships the way you can. You can't fund research the way you can. You can't get the peer group to cheer you on the way leftist peer groups will. And right-wing celebrities tend to be more shock jocks than they are serious, hard academic researchers.
So, okay, so going back to you mentioned, like, how do we stop this? You said to win back the humanities. Now, I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to give a different perspective here. That might not mean much to the common person on the street who is seeing their capital
Yeah.
city turned into what it's being turned into. So if you were speaking to them, direct someone in London, who's now seeing their city transformed, I think white people are now half or less than half, I think, within London. Actually, I'm not sure if that's true. It might be like white Europeans, but they might be Eastern European. But actually, in white English, British, whatever, it's like half or less than half. Something along those lines. So they've seen. I mean, I remember the area that I used to live in before. It was just on the outskirts of London, and that was like completely white. Completely, maybe I think we were the only Asian family on that road. And in the space of 10, 15 years, it's either completely like a lot of it is like Eastern European or Asian or black, which is not necessarily a bad thing. However, the rate, the speed at which it's changing, and the lack of integration, and the lack of the need of integration, because why integrate when you can just hang out with your same mates from back home, just here, right? So that is quite worrying. So how, if you're speaking to that person, right, what's your message to them? Because I'm always, I feel sorry for them, because on one side, if they display any kind of patriotism, they're right wing.
Yeah.
Right. And that kind of happened in this Palestine-Israel whole thing, with the whole Palestine and the armistice and the whole, that kind of display that, oh, these right wingers. I'm like, most of these people are probably old school left wingers, if I'm like old school working class people that actually take pride in their country. Right. They're not even right wing. They probably hate the right wing in terms of, oh, they're elite. So you see how, because they don't fit they're not the right left wing, therefore they're now the right wing. So if you're speaking to him, what would you say to him? How would you win back your country?
You're asking the wrong person. This I
I
intellectualize problems. You see, I'm the little shit
I think that's part of the
who'll
problem,
never
though.
get. I'm the shit who'll never get elected, because if you put an ugly baby, all great apes do baby hugging to get elected to the head of their tribe. Chimpanzees do it, gorillas do it, humans do it. That, when ugly babies are placed on your lap, their diapers full of shit, you still have to say, "Oh, coochie coochie coo, what a cute baby." Whereas inside you're thinking, "Oh my god, what an ugly, smelly little shit of a kid."
Yeah.
I'm the guy who actually said, "Ew, like take that smelly little shit away from me."
Yeah.
So I'm the wrong guy. But look, it's a bit of a chicken and an egg situation, and it involves acting against our fundamental instinct of the right is individual liberty. Right? It's personal individual liberty. Individual, not group, not the collective individual. But it requires us to do an institutional capture. You can't do institutional capture without educational capture, but you can't take on the educational hierarchy without an institutional capture. So first you're facing a chicken and an egg situation. Now the left,
go on. Sorry, go on.
Now the left solves this problem by justifying and normalizing violence on the streets and giving it lovely sounding names like, resistance, Black Lives Matter,
Voice of the
etc.,
voiceless.
etc. The voice of the voiceless bullshit. Okay, and they actually make the victims out to be the aggressors. The problem on the right is we don't even have the education, the humanities education, and the skills to do that. And it goes against a fundamental grain. We're fighting against institutionalization.
Of course.
So we don't want to become a carbon copy. So, this is classically
Catch-22.
how...
Yeah. You want to be it, but not be it. You need it to win, but you don't want to end up then creating another one, which you have to destroy afterwards.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. So you said, and I'm just trying to just whatever, play devil's advocate. We need institutions. So Elon Musk buying Twitter. Okay. So
fantastic.
Right. So that's an example of a victory, right? From the right wing. He's been pretty open about his views.
It's a victory for the right, but it's been a great personal financial failure for Elon.
Yeah.
He's never been rewarded for it.
No. But to be fair, he has said that this is something almost like a charity or pro bono kind of like his own personal project, his values, not just about making money, which shows, listen, this is what I don't understand. The guy, I mean, I don't know much about it, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the guy is like literally like PayPal, what's the other one? electric cars. This is like pro-environment. Yeah,
Tesla,
he's
Tesla. Yeah,
Tesla, right?
yeah.
So this is all like good stuff, right? This is all like
Yeah.
environmentally friendly cars. But no,
This is
he's
free
a
speech. SpaceX is for science. Tesla is for the environment.
but he's a greedy, bad right winger who's gonna. I don't understand that caricature. You know, the guy's making
That's till he
eco-friendly
came out.
cars.
Till he came out.
Hmm.
And a lot of gay folks tell me that coming out about their homosexuality is easier than coming out
Yes.
being right wing, because that
Yes.
actually gets persecuted a lot more
Hmm.
than being gay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what does that tell you about the society we live in? Clearly, free speech has well and truly ended as we know it.
Hmm.
I'm just shocked to see even the right in, say, Britain or America starting to talk about hate speech. There is no
Yeah.
such thing as fucking hate speech, okay? There is just speech, full stop. There's incitement, which follows the Brandenburg principle, which is specific threat to a specific person or group of persons. And that's it.
Hmm.
But we keep insisting that there is hate speech. Suella Braverman, a poster child of the right, she's been using hate speech. She's used hate speech once every single day for the last week. And what the hell are they doing about the Metropolitan Police, which goes around arresting? You remember how they arrested and held that poor autistic girl for 24 hours because she said, "Oh, that lady's a lesbian and she's in a lesbian relationship with
Oh yeah,
somebody
yeah,
else."
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh
You
no,
remember
she
that?
looks like a lesbian. I think something
Yeah,
along
yeah,
those lines.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. And they won't arrest far worse things like saying "kill the Jews."
No, no.
So look, free speech has ended in the West. The West is, uh, I think, the West is finished as we know it. Uh,
Well, this is
I don't.
I'm glad you said that because this is the title of the video. So
Yeah,
okay, now we finally 35 minutes to get here. Can you
I
tell
can't
me?
hear
Do
you.
you?
Yeah, so
Oh, can you
yeah,
hear me?
yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah,
Sorry. I got a bit excited there. So the West has ended. Now, could you, when you say ended, do you mean that they're no longer a global power, or that the civilization from its foundation is starting to
you're
this
breaking up
back?
again.
Oh,
I don't know. Yeah,
sorry. Just let me. Can you hear me now?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. If it goes out,
Okay.
just sort of shout.
Yeah,
Hope-
yeah.
Uh,
Oh, hello.
hear me? Hello.
Hey, yes, can you hear me?
You can hear. Yep, I can hear you. Sorry, I think when I
Oh,
said the West ended,
okay.
I think my camera ended just as a moment as
Oh, okay.
dramatic as that was. The perfect timing of
Okay.
that. Sorry about that. Don't know what happened there. So the West has ended. Now, could you explain when you say the West has ended? Do you mean it's no longer the number one power, which is maybe like you've been relegated to number 2 or 3, whatever, or do you mean like it is actually the Western project is now done? It's just a matter of time before this is completely swept away and becomes something else.
The Western project is done.
Okay.
The West as a political entity will continue for a long time in a different way. So, for example, I think the best example of this is the Roman Empire, which lasts for about 400 years till it converts to Christianity. It converts to Christianity and lasts for another 100 years, and then it collapses in the West. And then, say, it lasts for another 1,000 years in the East as the Byzantine or the Eastern Roman Empire. Uh, I don't know if those 1,000-year timelines are valid anymore, because the more industrial and modern you get, timelines start getting compressed. But the West as a political power, as a as the determinant of global trade and a lot of global norms will continue. But the ideas that created the West, the ideas that were born of the Industrial Revolution, are all going to end, which is going to accelerate the end of Western political dominance. The problem is, it may continue for quite some time if somebody powerful enough doesn't arise. See, you can have, like Rome, it had a roughly equal power in the Sassanid Empire, either the Parthian, the Arsacid Empire, or the Sassanid Empire. But when that ends and the Arabs come, who are a completely different kind of power, boom, that's the end of Byzantium,
Finish. Yeah.
right? Uh, so I think all things, I don't think China is going to be the end of the West. Something else, I think this is Rome and China is the Sassanid Persia to uh, the Roman West, if you want to call it that. Who's going to be the Arabs? I don't think the Arabs are going to be the Arabs this time round, but I don't know who's going to be the Arabs.
Right.
But that's, I think, it's very important that we understand that, the modern West and Rome were two different things. Rome and Greece brought about a sort of this focus on the atomic. In Indian philosophy, we always do the macro. Greece brought about this increasing focus on the atomic interaction of things. Go into the micro, which Rome adopted, and that is where the great academic traditions of Rome start. Even though I would argue that this had started even before with the Assyrians, to some extent inherited from the Egyptians. The Egyptian tradition, even though the Egyptian tradition was a bit obtuse. Uh, the modern tradition, which loves to connect itself to the Roman past, because everything seeks continuity from the past, it seeks validation from the past, would be something born of the Industrial Revolution. Slavery didn't end because Christians had a sudden change of heart. It's that industry is based on uniformity and quality control. Quality is a function of labor. Labor can only be good if you invest in labor. It's called human investment. You can't have slaves. Slaves will never produce good quality. Slaves are great for plucking cotton, they're not good for industrial quality in a factory. So the Northern American states industrialize. The South's hanging on to slavery, and because of all the cotton farming and sugar farming and all of that, becomes very problematic for America, for the northern states, because they need more manpower, etc., etc. The Civil War wasn't fought out of the goodness of people's heart, right? Britain, surprisingly, the entire deep colonization of Africa starts after the abolition of slavery. Why? Till there was slavery, all Britain, France, everybody wanted, and America wanted, was slaves from the periphery. They had peripheral colonies on the coast of Africa. Once industrialization started, slavery didn't suit them. They got rid of slavery and started colonization. And I'm not talking about Spanish and Portuguese colonization of the Americas. That's a sort of an anthropological outlier. Uh, Here, the deep colonization of Africa for resources then starts after the end of slavery, precisely because of the end of slavery and industrialization. Right?
Very
So you
interesting. I
see
never thought
all
about that. I
these.
never thought. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So you see all these linkages start coming out slowly, which then produce you. What is your competitive advantage? You'll see this today in Japan, where every ramen shop has to get very deep into a ramen and come up with something completely unique to compete with the next door ramen guy. In Vietnam, each pho stall has to come up with something very unique to compete with the next pho rickshaw stall on the street next to him. Otherwise, people aren't going to come to you. And so the West realizes that innovation is the key in the industrial age, and thought is allowed to blossom. Why? Because it is key to survival.
Yeah.
Whereas before, the church had to control thought, or kings had to control thought. Democracy didn't come about because of enlightened values, it came about because of the need. the actual need. The economy drove policy. Women weren't emancipated because of the kindness of men. In fact, it was patriarchy that led to women's emancipation, because patriarchy produced the first nation states. The first nation states produced kings. The first kings produced empires. The first empires produced colonialism. The first colonialism produced resource concentration. The first resource concentration then produced industrialization. And what is when we say industrialization, it's important we understand what it is. It's the application of chemical energy to the production process. It completely negates the one thing, the only thing that is different between a man and a woman, that is sheer physical strength and the physiognomy. Because a man pushing a button for a robotic arm to pick up 100 tons of
Mm,
steel is the same as a woman pushing a robotic button to pick
same
up
thing. Yeah.
100 tons of
Yeah.
steel,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it equalizes that, and that is where women can start entering the workforce.
I never thought about
So
it like that.
women's
Wow.
emancipation is the gift of the patriarchy. Women should be
Get
grateful
to
for
work,
it.
ladies.
In
Get to
fact,
work.
yeah. So Women's Day should be celebrated as, let's celebrate Patriarchy Day.
Mm,
You should worship your menfolk on Women's Day, on International Women's
right.
Day.
That's a very interesting
So
perspective. Wow.
yeah. So well, I'm just being an asshole, but anyway,
No, but
you get the
it's
drift.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it, things happen for an economic reason. And I suspect a lot of what we're seeing, which is the corporate sponsorship of this left wing woke DEI lunacy, is because people have seen what happened to Nokia. Nokia became a big company in our lifetime. Nobody knew Nokia till cell phones came about,
Hmm.
and it collapsed in our lifetime. And I think people like Apple or Google or whatever look at this shit and they don't want technology overtaking them. And so they come up with these means of thought control. In the olden days, it used to be the church with its dogma. Today, it's industrial houses, which are essentially the robber barons, the robber barons of the Magna Carta, essentially. And people don't realize the Magna Carta actually set back civil liberties by 300-400 years rather than forwarding civil liberties. And good and bad King John was actually good King John. And good King Richard was actually really trashy, nasty piece of shit King Richard. But your industrial houses are the robber barons of today. And they're using the church dogma kind of DEI, left wing bullshit to control people. And it fits in perfectly at a time when, I'm sorry, my cat is,
That's why it's fine.
yeah.
It's fine. Yeah.
Um, it fits in perfectly at a time where post religious societies are looking at new ways of social control. Because religion's a fantastic way of social control. It's something we've developed uh, in a tactile relationship over thousands of years. Is it a pit bull or a Rottweiler that could attack? Yes. But at least you've developed a modus vivendi. DEI and gender shit are essentially untrained Rottweilers. They are untrainable Rottweilers because the very basis of them is mass psychosis and spurts of writing. So
Right.
companies subsidize all this crap because they want to slow down the pace of innovation. They are taking us back to the feudal ages. They are trying to reverse the path of industrialization.
Really?
Yeah, that is my hypothesis.
Mm. Okay. So hang on. So I'm trying to understand this. So you're saying like the whole DEI stuff, diversity stuff, is slowing. Well, I get. Yeah.
All your employees are shit scared. They don't know what to do. They don't know what they're going to get written up for, sacked, their entire career destroyed for some thought crime. How is it any different from Stalin's Russia or Tomas de Torquemada's Spanish Inquisition? This is how you control thought. It is Big Brother. It's 1984.
Mm.
This is how you control people. This is how you slow down innovation. This is how you create a static society that doesn't move.
Now, I find it strange you would say that technology companies want to slow down innovation
Yeah.
when they are the reason why they exist is because of innovation. So how does that work? Because surely they want to be the most innovative, right?
Simplest example is the Wright brothers. Everybody credits Wilbur Wright with the innovation of aviation in America. Do you know America went into the First World War without a single working fighter propeller aircraft? Why? Because the Wright brothers had uh, uh, cornered every single patent to do with flight. And so nobody else in America could come up with an aircraft design or marketed in America. And it literally put back American aviation by 20, 30 years. It prevented natural development. Take Google, for example. Google is the most useless company on earth. We're on Chrome right now, which came about, what, 15 years back?
Hmm.
You use Google Maps, which is again 15 years old. You use Google Earth, which is another 15 years old. There is not a single new Google product that has come out in 15 years. And yet, what does Google do? They have these massive offices all over the world. For what? It's just for valuation, because nobody sitting in those offices actually does anything worthwhile. What is the new Google product you've seen? Zero, zilch.
I think Google
It's,
Lens,
it's
Google I don't know those glasses.
have you started wearing Google Lens? Who is?
No,
So it's
I've
all
got that.
bullshit.
Hmm.
Right. I mean, even Apple came up. Everybody was going gaga over this Apple equivalent of Google Lens. Remember?
Hmm.
What happened to that? I mean, nobody, it's not even there on the Apple website anymore.
Hmm.
Have you seen that? It's not being
No,
sold on
no.
Apple anymore.
Right.
Nobody wants to talk about it. Everybody was saying, oh my God, this is going to completely revolutionize. This is going to succeed where Google Lens failed. Bullshit. It hasn't. You look at BMW, Mercedes, Audi. Are their cars going any faster or any more fuel efficient than they were 15, 20 years back? No. The only thing you're getting is useless bullshit like, I can say, hello, BMW,
Hmm.
open the sunroof.
Sunroof. Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
this isn't an innovation. This is a car. Uh, the next stage of car should have been a self-driving car. Even Tesla's been promising that for the last 10 or so years. They've not been able to deliver. There is
But
no
but
actually.
but is that due to DEI, or is that something? Is it just because that I mean, I'm trying to be devil's advocate. Is that because that what they're aiming for is so ambitious that
It's
they
it, it,
underestimated?
it
Oh,
it's
sorry. Yeah.
because they all of them have a complete monopoly today. Google's monopoly on searches is more pervasive than the English East India Company. Uh, and
Mm.
you look at all these companies, they are the most intensely powerful companies ever in human history. We've never had more powerful companies. The real data and dirt that they have on you is all the metadata that you're giving them by using StreamYard, by using Gmail, by using Google,
Instagram,
etc.
face. Yeah, yeah,
They know more about you than you know about
yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
And they're developing the algorithms to exploit those. Right. And it's complete technology stasis in that sense. You want to believe that your iPhone, this is an iPhone 12, is better than your iPhone 7 or 8. It really doesn't do much more, except it's got three cameras than the 7 or 8 or
Next one have
whatever.
four, then five. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah, right. So
yeah.
that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Uh, so you have the illusion of change without change. You have a technological slowing down exactly at the time when technology was set to explode like never before, which would have meant that companies won't last for 6 to 8 months. There would be 6 to 8 month phenomenons, maybe 3 to 5 year phenomenons, and then they would go boom. And to stop that, all the monopoly companies or all the peak companies slowed down the pace of development.
Have they become kind of become like the unions, or like almost like
They have.
yeah,
It's a cartel. It's not a union,
cartel?
it's a
Yeah,
cartel.
cartel. Yeah,
They,
yeah.
they're essentially technology cartels. And the
Mm.
way they enforce it is not the ham handed way in which OPEC enforces oil. It's a more sophisticated way using DEI and all that shit. And, this is where something much more insidious has come about. Academia has always been the lapdog of the powers that be, always, throughout history, anywhere. The priesthood and academia. And today, you look at Harvard or Stanford or any of that, a science degree, $40,000 a semester, you're actually using up that $40,000 in the sciences, going and doing experiments, possibly with exotic elements, uranium or polonium or whatever in the lab, depending on what science you do. The humanities, you're paying pretty much the same, say about $32 to $36,000 per semester to do what? A
Mm.
study on farmer markets in the summer in Timbuktu. How's that even remotely comparable to
Mm.
somebody researching the impact of photons as a means of propulsion?
Yeah.
It's not.
No.
So the overheads and the profits that universities are able to earn with bullshit humanities, that remaining 998 pages that Lenin spoke about, or rather, I spoke about based on what Lenin
Mm.
postulated, uh, is what is running a lot of these universities. Unemployable schmucks with degrees that aren't worth the paper that they're written on, masquerading around as great profundity and depth of knowledge.
Okay. Right. Now I want to get back to that was really really interesting. I was want to get back to what's happening in the Middle East because I know this is on everyone's mind. Um, how do we get out of this? Because, and I think you said this before, even if Hamas were to leave tomorrow, the population of Palestine and the surrounding areas, and even now bloody London and New York and all the major cities, the Palestinian supporters, I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that they are quite radicalized or quite strident in their belief that from the river to the sea, all that kind of stuff. So even if tomorrow you get rid of them, wouldn't they just be replaced by someone else who just looks like them? So,
Yeah,
so then what is the actual solution?
like I said, for the right, it's a catch-22. Uh, we'll end up becoming like them if we have to defeat them. That's the sad part of it.
And what would that look like? So, okay, what would that have to look like? What would have to happen? Is this basically Batman? You're the hero, then you become, if you live long enough, you become the villain, whatever it is.
You're the anti-hero, yeah. Francisco Franco. You're going to need another Francisco. You're going to
Could you
need
explain
another
that to me?
Franco.
Sorry, I'm not sure.
So, the fascist dictator of Spain.
Oh, okay. So
Who,
So you're saying we need someone who's just going to come in and just flatten the place, and you're saying that otherwise, okay. So so it will be from the river to the sea, but it won't be Palestine will be free. It will be the opposite.
from the river to the sea, Israel will be
Israel
free.
will Israel will be free. So you're saying so
Look,
yeah. Okay.
it's not a genocidal vision because this is a mental disease. It's not an ethnic
No, I
disease,
agree. Yeah.
right? It's an ideological disease. Uh, we need a reset. There's been too much rationalization and normalization of leftist bullshit for far too long. They keep reinventing themselves in different ways and passing themselves off as valid. It's standard. If you notice, every country that becomes an Islamic state and fails, the standard explanation is, oh, but that's not true Islam. Iran
Yeah.
isn't true Islam. Pakistan isn't true Islam. Algeria isn't true Islam. Basically, no state is true Islam, which is why it fails. Communists are exactly like that. Why did Cuba fail? That's not true communism. Why did the USSR fail? That's not true communism. Why China succeeding? That's communism, but that's really not communism because that's
No, it's
crony
not.
capitalism. But then they fall quiet. They'll standard go back to the three ones that they can use, the three examples which they always use, or three, four: Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark. And each one has a very unique economic history of why they succeeded. Sweden was in deep shit because of excessive social spending, and what saved Sweden was World War I and World War II. It was literally supplying both the Allies and the Axis powers with metal and guns, Carl Gustav, Bofors, and all those things that made Sweden solvent and rich all over again. With Norway, people forget about the North Sea oil and the discovery of North Sea oil and what that did for Sweden.
Mm.
With Denmark, it was war profiteering on pork, believe it or not. You can be a very rich agrarian country as well. New Zealand did it with sheep,
Yeah.
Denmark does it with pork. And Finland did it with something very unique called the Finnish shipping cluster, which is Finland was in that unique position that it had very close political ties with the USSR, but it could get Western technology. And so they created a complete industry there to supply Western quality to Soviet industry. So each one of these, first of all, has a minute population, uh, combined with each one had a very, very unique uh, historical circumstance that led to what happened.
Right. So okay, fair enough. So can I just kind of squaring that circle regarding the whole Middle Eastern conflict? Um, is integration possible within the West? Because even if tomorrow we said there's no more immigration in the West, we've seen there is a huge divide, and this has always existed. But I think if in my lifetime, this is probably the worst I've seen it, in terms of the level of violence, the brazen anti-Semitism, just hating one's own like country, whether it's in the US or the UK. This sort of it's almost like this sort of thuggish, just sort of disregard. I think in Paris or France is probably worse than the UK. I think so anyway. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But you said it's the end of the West. Is it the end of the West because of this, or is it the end of the West because of something else? Like I'm trying to like pinpoint exactly what is the end. Like what is the final?
It is multi-causal, but I think this is the most important reason. Will be the most important reason that the idea of the West, which was all about free and open thought, heresy without consequence, a heresy sometimes with reward, because innovation is mental heresy if you look at it
Yes,
from a certain
yes.
point of view. That's why I think the West is gone too far. It's the Roman Empire at its declining stages. Multiculturalism has gone too far. It's become an animal in its own right, where integration. I was always taught, and this is a kind of a Hindu philosophy, I guess. I'm an atheist, but anyway, which is integration is fine, assimilation is not. I think the West confused assimilation with integration. And
so could you give me an example of that? Because integration versus assimilation.
Sure. Assimilation is where you lose your roots completely.
So would it be that guy when you went to Uzbekistan, he's giving you the pork and the vodka in the mosque? Okay.
That's complete assimilation.
Right.
Integration is where you're able to form a complete modus vivendi with the society you live in. You're able to blend in. You don't stick out like a sore thumb. And at the same time, you are very distinct about your own culture.
So I'm just gonna someone's asked here, how is multiculturalism a bad thing? So we're on this topic. So if you could just break that down, why it's a bad thing,
Sure.
or when you say it's gone too far, could you explain when the too far is?
Sure. It's because there are two elements to multiculturalism: the integration and the assimilation.
Yeah.
The assimilation is where brown people marry into white people and start looking white after a point of time, and there is no residual tradition or heritage of their original culture left. Integration is where the original culture survives, even if the ethnicity dies, or the ethnicity survives, even if the culture merges. There is some uniqueness left. And this is a good thing. If this is multiculturalism, it's a very good thing. The problem is that all the loopholes in this idea have been turned into salience, what Huntington describes as substance and salience. Substance is what binds us together, salience is what divides us. We are sharpening the salience under the guise of multiculturalism. I don't think it's multiculturalism per se to blame, as the abuse of multiculturalism is to blame. But today, the word multiculturalism has been hijacked to the point where it probably requires a very significant backlash to push back against it. I think
So
we need to
yeah.
reform the boundaries.
So
We need
so
to be
so
clear. The problem is the right is intellectually dumb. We don't study the humanities. It's always in opposition to the left that we come up with our humanities. We don't come up with the humanities ab initio as theories, so we're never able to lay down the boundaries. We're never able to lay down the definitions. We're not able to lay down all of that.
So I'll just give you an example because I thought that was quite interesting. Because I actually think they probably now I would argue that we need assimilation because there's so much salience, like you were saying. There's so much of it that the answer is probably the other end,
Yeah,
which is
now because multiculturalism is completely broken, which is why you now say, bugger, no more fucking Waleed and no more fucking Abhijit. I don't know what your fucking wog brownie names are. You're fucking David and fucking Richard, and you're fucking going to the Anglican church and singing God Save the fucking Queen,
yeah,
or the King now, is it?
yeah, the king.
Yeah. And your last names aren't your Waleed what?
Wayne. Well, I'm actually it's actually Vine or Vani, Vani to Vine to Wayne. So I've
Okay.
actually
Right.
assimilated that
So you have assimilated. Okay.
accidentally, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So no more fucking Wani or Mitra.
yeah.
You have to be I don't know,
Wayne
Abroth,
and Mitchell,
Bishop.
Mitchell,
Yeah, Abroth Mitchell.
Mitchell.
Abroth Mitchell
Yeah,
and uh
William
Wally
Wayne.
Wayne.
Yeah,
Yeah,
William
William
Wayne.
Wayne. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
it.
yeah. So okay, I want to give you an example. When Kushal came here to my house, obviously I'm Pakistani. He goes, मैं तुझे Pakistani नहीं मानता. Okay, fine, whatever. Okay, fine. Anyway, I'm Pakistani, and then my wife is she's Anglo-Arab, so she's part Arab, part English. So our kids, God knows what they are, right? So, but then when he came to my house, he's like, "Yaar, tu to bilkul gora," you whatever. So to him, I'm completely white, or he said, I can't
Yeah.
even like whatever. But that's quite interesting, and the reason why I'm saying that is because when I grew up Pakistani, with Pakistani parents back in the 90s and early 2000s, when multiculturalism isn't what it is now. Being different, especially remember 9/11, 7/7, this happened, this is when I grew up. That's my kind of background. Being different was annoying. It was a burden because I never felt like I was completely part of society. I was always different from them. But then that's quite, I would say, would I want my son to have that? Absolutely not. Right? Why live in a country well, I wasn't born here, but I came out, I was born. Why live in a country and then have the burden of being different? Like you never truly feel at home, which is why I think on some level assimilation. Now looking back on it, I would like, if I didn't feel different, then a lot of my life early life would have been so much easier. I wouldn't have had to carry this thing around. I remember we have when you go to school, you wear your uniform. So we have non-uniform day. You can one day you can wear whatever you want. You give £1 to charity, whatever it is. Okay, fine. On that day, always, I was in a white area in part of outskirts of London. I always used to wear the Pakistan cricket shirt, just to make a point. Now I look back and I cringe. I cringe on that, right? But in my mind, I had to be like, I'm not you. I'm not one of you, and that's not. I never thought that. Now looking back on it, I'm like, that's not a healthy.
But I think so. This is fascinating because in India, everybody's a freak because there's Hinduism is like 1,000 different things to 1,000 different people. So being a freak out here is perfectly normal. You're okay being different. You're not defensive about being different. You don't feel cringy about it later on in life, and you don't feel uh, forced to highlight your difference when you're young.
Right.
So I actually grew up in an environment where you could be pleasantly freaky and different while still completely integrated into the whole.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
what
actually,
happened here. No.
yes, so I found integrating into Soviet society and then into Viennese society and then into American and Australian society where I've lived uh, very, very easy. To the point where I was, I mean, you look at the Hindu right, they keep making fun of me as Gora Sahib. Okay.
Hmm.
That I'm Occidental in my thought and whatever. I'm not. I'm actually quintessentially Indian in my thought. Um, it's to the point where I was so white that they could make a completely racist joke to me, to my face. It won't be misinterpreted because we were really close work colleagues everywhere, and I would make an equally racist joke right back at them.
Mm.
And there was no HR in, there was no bullying. There was, you could tell that there was no, Australia is one of those cultures where, affection is expressed through uh,
Insult, yeah. Insult and
insult.
ridicule, yeah.
Yeah.
To be fair,
So
that was the norm when I grew up in the 90s. That was very normal to be like, oh, this
was,
guy's black, he's Pakistani, he's
and
Bangladeshi.
dude, like
Yeah.
those friends would give their life for me even today.
Mm.
Okay, like so people would be like, ah, you fucking brown curry muncher, fucking go
Yeah.
back to where you fucking
Yeah.
came from. Be like, yeah, you fucking asshole who doesn't wash
Yeah.
his own ass, like
Yeah.
fucking shit stain underwear wearer kind of thing. Uh, it's
Yeah.
close friends.
Mm.
They would, nobody else talks to you that way. They will stand up for you. We've
Mm.
gotten to a stage where we can't be honest with each other.
Yeah.
Because there is racism and that this is not racism.
This is
I
not
think
racism.
people
No.
don't realize that. It's very easy to call it racism when in fact different cultures born differently. Like Punjab, I don't know if you're Punjabi Pakistani,
Yeah,
but
Punjab. Well, yeah.
I
I was born in
you're
Lahore.
Kashmiri,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But
But
in
I would
Indian
consider myself
Punjab,
Punjabi. But I'm
in
Punjabi.
Indian
Yeah.
Punjab, the term of endearment are all cuss words. It's
Mm.
prada puttar pan chod, mother chod. I mean, you don't say mother chod or pan chod to just anyone.
Yeah.
You have to be pretty close to somebody. Say, oh, wale the bad chod, kya kar raha hai tu?
Yeah.
Right. You don't go up to say the prime minister or the chief minister and say, oh, bad chod, tu kya kar raha hai? No, there's a certain formality out there. There's a certain
Yeah.
distance. You're creating. So these abuses are actually endearments. You're being brought into a circle.
Yeah.
Uh, I
So
think
is kill all the Jews a term of endearment?
no, I think not.
But they
See,
actually.
this is where it requires a social intelligence to know what is a term of endearment and what is not.
Yeah.
Right. I think so much of it depends on intent and tone.
Hmm.
And social media very frequently takes away intent and tone.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Awesome. So, guys, that's really, really good. If you got any questions, I know there's some people commenting here, but if you got any other questions regarding anything we've spoken about, or you want to ask Abhijit something in particular, please put them in the comment section now. I'm just seeing if we got anything here. Okay, so we've just got a comment here. Leftists are still overprotective towards Islam and Hamas while attacking Christianity all the time. What a paradox. What did you make of Ayaan Hirsi Ali's conversion to Christianity? If you can even really... It's more of a strategic move. I don't know if it's a come to Jesus kind of moment, but it seems like it's like a...
No, I don't. A lot of people are saying it's fake. I disagree.
Really? Okay, I'd love to hear this.
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. This comes from, I can totally understand why for a Muslim woman, Western Christianity is the underpinning of Western liberalism. It's actually Western industrialization, which then made Western Christianity liberal, which became the underpinning. I think there is cause effect confusion in her argument because Christianity in the third world, in Uganda or
It's not.
Kenya or places like that, is not first world
No,
Christianity.
it's not.
It's kill the fags, throw the fags, burn the fags alive, etc., etc. right? Uh, in the first world, it's a different kind of Christianity. Even in places like Italy, it's a different kind of Christianity. He may think you're a faggot, the padre might, but he's not going to say it out loud.
Mm, mm.
There's a certain civilizational norm that's been imposed. Uh, so what ends up happening is I can see where she's coming from, even if I disagree with her. And there's a reason for it. See, the church ultimately adapted to the French Revolution's anti clericalism, because the French Revolution's anti clericalism and secularism, again, born of industrial churn, industrial revolution churn, early industrial revolution churn, uh, found a modus vivendi to coexist. Islam did not, because Islamic countries are only developing right now. I think the Emirates is the first fully developed Islamic country. Saudi Arabia will probably follow them. And the Emirates has developed some kind of a modus vivendi with religion. The Saudis are in the process of developing that modus vivendi with their religion. We have not had a fully industrialized Muslim state. Iran had a head start, and then the Islamic Revolution got rid of that. I want to see how it develops, but till then, I understand where she's coming from. For me, as an Indian, we're a third world shithole. Okay. But uh, being a freak here has never been an issue. Being an atheist is not an issue. Atheism is accepted as one of the 12 schools of thought within Hinduism. So for me, it hasn't been born in opposition, like, say, French Revolution atheism was born in opposition to the Catholic clergy. My atheism has always been part of the hierarchy and part of the system. It's been accepted as one of the 12 streams of thought. Are you a freak? Of course you are. But Hinduism loves freaks. There's no issue of freaks. See, you're free to pick and choose. There's no, if you want to do dogmatic purity or orthopractic purity, you can. If you don't want to, you're perfectly fine. There's no there's punishment for sacrilege. There's no punishment for blasphemy. Sacrilege is the physical act of desecration. Blasphemy are
Mm.
thought crimes.
Right, right. Okay, that's
Right.
interesting.
So physical desecration is punishable.
Mm.
And so, we've never had to fight for our existence. We're part of the system. We at least believe that there is no God. Hey, that's a belief system. Therefore, you're one.
One of
And
us.
and our school draws from the Nasadiya Shukta, which is in the Vedas, which is essentially agnostic. It casts doubt on if a God even exists. And we say, well, it doesn't. So we're again seen as an orthodox school of thought, because again, the initial idea does come from the holy book that God doesn't exist.
So okay,
So
so you genuinely think Ayan Hirsi Ali loves Jesus, believes Jesus is the Messiah?
no, but she doesn't say that. She says that hers is a disillusioned conversion to Christianity, because she's seen atheists turn leftists, support all kinds of bullshit like wokery, gender fluidity, and all that shit. And that is why she has decided to join the camp, the only camp in the West that seems to be pushing back against this, which is the conservative right. Uh, uh, well, you can't really call the church conservative, but well,
No.
kind of
Well,
old
yeah, okay.
fashioned ish.
Compared to,
Yeah,
yes, yes.
compared to, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So
well, okay. So,
it's a reactionary conversion. It's not it's not Peter and Paul seeing
no,
Christ on,
no.
yeah.
But then, is
Yeah.
that really a convert? I would liken her conversion to Christianity the way Andrew Tate converted to Islam. For him, it was like, which religion is anti woke? Which religion is not scared of standing up for themselves? Which religion is pro macho man?
Mm.
Oh, it's Islam. Okay, I'm a Muslim now. I'm one of you brothers. He
But
doesn't need
see,
to praise Muhammad. He doesn't need
but
to read
look,
the Quran. He doesn't need to do any of those things. If he just verbally
Andrew
supports,
Tate, I completely support his conversion to Islam. My whole issue with Andrew Tate is I'm sure he's a closet homosexual. Because
oh,
that
okay,
kind of
is this wishful
yeah.
thinking, Abhijit?
So,
Is this
so
wishful
so I
thinking?
think no, it isn't. Trust me, he's not my type. He's not
Oh,
my
okay,
type
fair
at
enough.
all.
Fair enough. Fair
Yeah,
enough.
but it's he's he's got a very low level of thought. I think Ayan's reasons are much more solidly thought out, much more
I don't
solidly
see.
thought out.
If you're saying I'm not, unless I hear someone say, you know what, I read the Quran or Bible and I just fell in love with the text. I love Jesus. I love Muhammad. If you're not saying that, but instead you're saying this set of ideas is good at combating the enemy which I hate, then for me it's a very convenient marriage. It's like an arranged marriage. It's just like,
It
well,
is. But what's wrong with that? I mean,
no,
who are
no,
we to
I've got
question?
nothing. If she wants to convert to
Hmm.
Christianity, I've got no problem with anyone converting to anything, whether
Yeah.
Islam or Christianity. I'm just questioning whether it's an actual conversion in the sense of like when she goes to sleep at night, she actually thinks there is a God. She actually thinks like the Bible is inspired by God and Jesus actually died on the cross and came back to life again. I really doubt those things.
Does
If
she
she wants to
actually
be,
say that?
but that's
Does
the
she say
point.
that?
A real Christian would. A real Christian
But
would at least. This is what I'm saying
you
to you.
don't need to. You don't need to. You can be a cultural Christian. So my all my friends in Italy. This is what I love about Italy
Mm,
because their atheist doesn't. It's almost like a Hindu atheist. An atheist in Italy doesn't feel the need to go into the Vatican and decry uh, papist child
mm.
molestation and blah blah bullshit, right? They don't believe in God, but they'll go to the church every now and then and do the
Yeah,
Ave
yeah,
Maria or
yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
just to fit in. Uh, I accept that. I
No,
also
I
accept
don't
that
have
with
a problem with that. I don't have a problem with someone
but I don't have a
culturally.
problem.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But I'm just thinking
it
it's
it
not. It's not.
it
It's not like oh Jesus, I love you, which is fine. But
yeah
it's
yeah
fine.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah. It's fine
you
if
don't
that's not.
have to. You don't have to love Jesus. You don't
What if you're a
have
Christian? You
to.
do. If you're a Christian, you do. There's no way around it.
You don't.
Come
You
on.
really don't.
Can you be Muslim and not
I'm not.
think? Yeah. I
And
mean,
I'm not the only one saying this. I mean, this is there in the 1980s, and yes, Prime Minister, the matters
mm,
of the church where the Archbishop has to be appointed. Even then, you had Archbishops of Canterbury who didn't believe in God.
wow.
Uh, you've had you've had a lot of, dare I say it, Catholic clergymen who I know were actually clergymen who follow their vows of chastity who don't believe in God.
I'll be honest
So
with you. I don't understand how that works. To devote your whole life to a religion that you don't believe in, and not just like a normal person, but
no,
as someone who's a clergyman, that's crazy.
they believe in the praxis of it. Uh, that the praxis that there's a rigor, that there's a systematic rigor and structure to it.
Mm,
It goes back to that. Who was it? Napoleon or Rousseau, Voltaire, who said it? If religion didn't exist, we'd have to invent it.
mm,
I'm. I don't believe. No, I think it was Napoleon who said, "I don't believe in God, but I believe in religion." I'm like that. I don't believe in God, but I
mm,
believe in religion.
right.
It's convenient.
No, I 100% agree with that statement that if it didn't exist, we'd have to invent it because human beings need a structure or direction, right? We need to say a Muslim word, a qibla or a kaaba to at least face. We're
Hmm.
directing ourselves towards something, right? So I completely understand that. Now I want to. This is okay. So I don't know what you think of Jordan Peterson and that kind of way of thinking, but one of the things that really annoy me, and this is going to be my sort of and love to hear your opinion on this, and I'm sure I'm not the first person to think this, but one thing that really annoys me with the sort of, I like Jordan Peterson, but one thing that annoys me about him is when he says this is Judeo-Christian values. Like you kind of said that it's the other way around in terms of industrialization had an effect on Christianity, which is now why it's nice and soft and fluffy, and not the other way around. Fine. However, this is why I'm annoyed by Iron Hersey, just because the very wokery that she is against, and we were both against as well. I think, and there was that famous debate between Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson. They went back, back and forth two,
Mm.
3 times, and he was Jordan Peterson said to Sam Harris, "Your ethics are basically Judeo-Christian ethics. You're kind of breathing and swimming in the Judeo-Christian world. It's almost invisible to you. You don't even appreciate it. You can't even see it. You can be an atheist, but the reason why you're a good person is because of these ethics." But then I would also flip that question and say, but so are the woke people. So they're also swimming in the Judeo-Christian ethics, and they're
Yeah.
all mini messiahs.
Yes.
They are all mini messiahs. So Jesus,
Marxism.
yeah,
Marxism is a product of the Judeo-Christian ethic.
okay,
Let's not forget
okay,
that.
right.
Yeah.
So you have Jesus who committed no sin because
Mm,
he is incapable of committing sin. Yet he was the one hung on the cross. He is the one that had to
mm,
die for everyone else's sins. So
mm.
a typical SJW says, "I'm not racist, but you guys are." And
Yeah.
I'm going to flagellate my civilization for the other. This is literally, and he loves his archetypes and substructures. I'm like, how can you not see that Jesus is the new woke, or the woke? They all think they are Jesus. They all think they are messiahs. So
But
Iron Hersey Ali, going back to the source of the wokery. What?
uh, assume that the Jesus story is as we're told in the Bible. I think
Sure. Let's
Jesus'
just
story
assume.
was
Yeah,
very
yeah. I'm
different
not
in
going for a
reality.
historical perspective, but let's go with
But
what they tell
but
us. Yeah,
but the
yeah,
narrative,
yeah,
Jesus would have been the Black Lives Matter of his time,
yeah. Yeah.
right?
Well, I'm glad you
Uh,
said it, not me. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Uh, and see, it's very easy for me sitting outside the Judeo Christian world to see the flaws of the Judeo Christian world. It's much harder for me sitting in India to see the flaws of Hinduism.
Mm.
Also, I find Western commentaries on Hinduism are extremely superficial because they go by the book and not by the lived reality. And life is all about the distance between what's written in the book and the lived reality. Uh, it's very academic criticisms, it's not practical criticisms. So I get where you're coming from. But for me, I don't see an intellectual problem with any of these. With Jordan Peterson, again, it's cause effect confusion, which is fine. That is uh, black hole, I guess, his blind
Blind spot.
spot.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
just like I have blind spots. I would probably sound like a complete fucking tosser on several issues, just like Ayan would on certain issues and Jordan Peterson would.
But
Why do we keep.
yeah.
See, for me, this notion of infallibility itself is Judeo Christian because Hindus don't accept infallibility. Everything is fallible, there is no
Mm,
one truth.
right.
I think the biggest difference between the Judeo Christian ethic and the Hindu ethic is this notion of infallibility, that Jesus is perfect. No God is perfect. We expect flaws in our gods, we accept flaws in our gods.
I'm glad you said that, because after I left Islam, I started looking into Greek mythology, and I kind of stumbled into it by accident. When I was Muslim, I never used to read anything about Hinduism. Forget Christian. The only thing, maybe a bit of Christianity, but only to disprove it, right? But Hinduism or paganism was, or whatever, polytheism was absolute no. So why would I read that? It's complete garbage. Like, literally, this is my. And I'm not even an extreme Muslim, right? But when I left Islam, I was like, okay, let me have a go at this. And when I read Greek mythology, like Stephen Fry, he released those 3 books, right? One of them is actually here, Troy. If you can see that, right? I was like, wow, they worship their gods even if they know they're at fault, because it's so much more complex. It's so much more sophisticated than my God is perfect, my prophet is perfect, he can do no wrong, he's the perfect, par excellence kind of whatever it is. And almost in a way, they almost become idols to worship. But whether they mean it or not, Muhammad
Yeah.
is a living idol that we literally copy and paste, beard to clothes to the way you urinate, everything. I don't even think a Christian would do that with Jesus, or even a Hindu would do that with their God. Yet a Muslim would do that with their prophet, in terms of copy and pasting every aspect of his life. That is a next level of idolatry that can't be replicated in
and
any
and
other religion.
and and so now you see why I support Ibn Taymiyyah and Wahhabism, because the first thing the Wahhabis do when they take control of Mecca and Medina is to destroy all the idolatry surrounding the prophet.
Mm,
His house becomes a place of reverence. The place where he got married becomes a place of reverence. They demolish all of that.
right.
It is a move towards removing that sacerdotal function that comes in between, say of the priest or whatever. It's meant to be your personal relationship with God, and that's it. But even there, they may remove the veneration of the prophet, but you can't remove the veneration of the book. See, the
No.
book almost substitutes, in a way,
Yeah. Yeah.
the physical presence of the book. It's very hard to do that. Christianity. So Christianity goes towards Catholicism, goes towards polytheism, because you have the
Yeah.
saints. The saints, you pray to the saints to intercede for you,
The same thing in
right?
Sufism or whatever it is. You have
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah,
You have
exactly
the
the same.
pirs and the dargahs and all of that.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So it's And Hindus have a huge inferiority complex where they keep trying to insist that no, no, we're actually monotheistic. We're actually monotheistic.
It's all the same. It's all one. It's all
Yeah.
one. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Zoroastrians will claim we're the first monotheists. The Bhagas aren't. They're henotheists. Ahura Mazda is the supreme god, but they
So
worship
what's a
the whole load of
henotheist?
gods.
I've never heard this one before. Henotheist.
Henotheist is where there's one supreme god who's worshipped above all others, and everybody
Uh,
else are junior gods.
is it like Zeus and there's like other like
No,
gods?
Zeus was pure polytheism because people could have fights with Zeus. With Ahura Mazda, there's no fighting with Ahura Mazda. See,
Okay.
everybody
Okay.
comes under him. It's a clear hierarchy. He's the
Hmm.
god of the gods. He's not the king of the gods. See, so
Oh, I see. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. That
and
makes
this is
sense.
where and this is where Akhenaten is really interesting, because he starts with polytheistic Egypt, and when he's in a co-regency with his father, he turns it into an Atenistic henotheism, and then when he becomes pharaoh, he changes us
Become
to
monotheist.
Atenistic monotheism.
Monotheist, yes.
And he turns into a complete fucking violent psychopath.
Yeah.
But I get all of that, but I think I understand where you're coming from, I guess. I've not lived the life of a Christian or lived the life of a Muslim, but from my tactile experience with Christian societies, more than Muslim societies, I can see where Jordan and Ayan Hersey are coming from.
Hmm.
I don't accept it as relevant to my experience or to an Indian or to a Hindu, because for us, our experiences are completely different. I could take 1,000 hours of your time and I still couldn't explain why uh, I don't have to live. I can be an atheist and a nonconformist freak, and I don't live in opposition to or outside of my religion.
And that's a very good point because I struggled to understand, and actually it was with Kushal that he kept saying to me, "You guys don't. You're looking at Hinduism the same way you look at Islam or Christianity. Like there's a very clear cut club card that works only with one team, right? You have a card that you can go into every single." Be like, can I come in? Yeah, sure. Why not come in? You want to leave? Yeah, no problem. With us, it's very clear. Even within the same religion, like it's Catholic or Protestant or the Sunni or Shia, there's a very bang bang. You know, the lines are very clearly drawn. So for me, it's like, I mean, it's just weird for me. That's why I can't. Like, I get why she's doing it, but I'm like, intellectually, is that honest? Now you might say, yeah, it's completely fine. You could be cultural Christian and you can just sort of join the team without doing the whole thing. But I'm like. So this is, again, you can correct me. I don't know if you've read Nietzsche or not, but I've tried to read Nietzsche and I'm just not smart enough. Or
No. Look, it's boring as hell. I've tried reading Nietzsche.
Yeah.
I just can't.
I
Look,
can't. I've really tried. Yeah.
It's just boring shit.
I actually had to get one of these books where. Sorry, I was just trying to find it.
Get Nietzsche for idiots. It condenses.
Yeah, I actually got that one, and it kind of even then I was like, I had to read it twice. I'm like, I'm not sure I understand it. But
look, a lot of these theories we need to understand are no longer valid. They may have been the basis for something that came later on, but they're completely outdated today. For
Nietzsche.
example, Nietzsche, and
Right.
I'll tell you why. A Neolithic treatise on building a leaf house, a leaf and bamboo house, is totally irrelevant to us today.
Mm-hmm.
But it was absolutely crucial in understanding stress and strain of materials when they're bent, and the durability of materials, which then led to the first mud huts, which then led to brick constructions, which then led to concrete constructions. It's that Mesolithic manual, if it exists anywhere, was crucial in the skyscrapers that exist today. But if I read it, it adds no value to me. I don't
Right.
feel Nietzsche adds value to me.
So okay. So maybe okay. Let me just tell you what I'm thinking. And I know I'm going to be a minority within a minority, but I think, you know what, if we are going to get ourselves out of this hole, then it does require something quite courageous and ambitious, right? So in terms of integration, meaning, nihilism, going back to Christianity, you know, whatever, even a cultural Christianity, the whole point, like atheism is not the end, it's the starting point. Is it now you can start to actually look at the universe and the world for what it actually is. um so for me, the more courageous thing would be like, okay, what's the new project? And for me, wokery is just Christianity without uh, worship, or
Christianity without Christ, yeah, yeah,
Christianity without Christ, and they are the
yeah,
Christ. Everyone is a
yeah,
everyone is a Christ, right?
yeah, yeah.
And because, and Jordan Peterson loves saying this, but now he's doesn't realize that the chickens have come home to roost. Is that he Jesus was the most innocent person you could kill. That's why it's
Mm.
so profound, that the most
Yeah.
innocent person was God on earth, who is whatever,
That's
whatever,
that's why it's called the Lamb of God. He's the
the
Lamb
Lamb
of
of
God,
God.
right?
So
The
he's literally the
Agnus
most
Dei.
innocent,
Yeah,
right? The most
yeah,
pure person. So that's why in the West, if you are a minority with it, like, you know, the black, lesbian, gay, whatever, that you are more innocent, you are more vulnerable, which is why you are higher in the hierarchy, right?
yeah.
So anyway,
And
that's
see, but
yeah. So
that's a sociological problem. That's a sociological problem because a minority can also be the worst kind of
I
fanatics.
I agree. This and okay, now you've gone on to the Palestine thing, right? So you can be a minority in terms of numbers, but also in terms of power. And they like Palestinians in
Yeah.
general are less powerful than the
Hmm.
Israelis, but that doesn't mean they're more moral. And this
Yeah.
is the confusion, and this is because David and Goliath, this meme, this archetype, like the small guy is always the right guy. No, he's not.
No,
No, he's
he's
not. And
not.
I'm not
He is
justifying
not.
anything or everything Israel does. I'm not.
Mm.
Put that to a side about the sort of their policies and whatever you want to call it. But just because you're a less powerful nation or a less powerful people, that doesn't mean your ideas are better or that what you believe is better. And in fact,
Mm.
you could be the villain. And
Yeah.
the suffering you are suffering is maybe your own fault. But that's
Yeah.
not popular to say. That's not
It's
popular to
not.
say.
It's not. And I think even there, it keeps going back to the yin and the yang, that the nastiness has its root in goodness, which is the human instinct to support the underdog,
Yep. Yep.
even if the underdog is actually the person to blame
Yep.
sometimes. Right. And look, there's lots of shades of gray in Israel Palestine. The problem there is one side has a reasonable amount of immoral people, but the other side I see absolutely no morality in, either in defending human shields, in defending the murder of people. Uh, the Israelis aren't the nicest people you'll come across, fine. But there are certain hard moral barriers that they don't cross. I don't see that amongst Palestinians. I don't see dissent. It's For me, the alarm bells go up when I see a uniformity of opinion. I've been taught a uniformity of opinion, and this is a Hindu teaching, by the way. A uniformity of opinion is the sign of something rotten.
Hmm.
If there is a uniformity of opinion, immediately my bullshit meter, my antlers go
Well,
up.
it's incestuous, stale,
It's control.
absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
the most vicious kind of uh, 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 mind control, that Hamas, having been in control of that strip for the last, what, 15, 20 years, it's going to be almost 20 years now.
2005. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Five, yeah.
2007, 5.
Uh, uh, is There's no opposition to it, really? There is no dissent to it, really? How? I mean, you're not very good at governing the Gaza Strip, so how come there's no dissent to you? Israel, on the other hand, has thriving dissent. Israel has a thriving Arab minority, an Arab Muslim minority that is very vocal, that is represented in parliament. Uh, 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 I have many friends in that minority. A lot of them proudly serve in the military, and they're very vocally critical of Israel. I find it much easier to connect with an Israel like that, even if Netanyahu, I disagree with some of his policies. I understand why they're implemented. So, for example, settlements is something I fundamentally disagree with, but I understand the tactic of carrot and sticks as a negotiation tool for final status settlement. That's a very long conversation to have, which, I mean, there's lots of moral and ethical dimensions to it, which I'm not going to get into. But I see a lot of morality coming from Israel, a lot of checks and balances coming from Israel. It's not nice what's happening in Gaza, but I mostly do defense policy, and I understand where an untrained public eye doesn't see it, sees indiscriminate bombing. I actually see a lot of discrimination, and I can tell you pretty much just by looking at certain things why certain targets were bombed or why they were bombed and what was done to minimize human casualties.
So
And
just
I can
just on
actually
that point,
show you.
yeah, yeah.
I
Sorry,
can
go on.
actually,
First. Yeah.
I can actually show you on several of these videos that there are no human beings around, and it's actually been evacuated prior to being bombed by the double tap method, where Israel detonates a small explosive on top to inform the residents get out, and they send
Hmm.
everybody SMSs to get out, and 10 minutes later the building is bombed.
Hmm.
Uh, I do not see that with Hamas. I
So this is
absolutely
actually
do not.
a good point, because how do I put this? Would you say that that could and this is the whole debate, that people think there's a moral equivalency between Hamas attacking Israel and then Israel responding in turn? There's
Zero.
not. Okay.
There
So
is
could you
not.
just break that down to the most simple level? What is the main difference between it? I'm going to give the Palestinian argument. They're under occupation. There's a blockade of resources, all that kind of stuff. They are a considerably less power, right? And Israel, every time it does attack, it's highly disproportionate. So can you tell us why what I've just said is wrong?
Okay. So point number one was it is under occupation. It has a
Occupation.
right to resist. The right to resist is killing armed occupiers. It's not going around raping and killing a music festival. Okay. It's not going into settlements and killing non-combatants. Number one. What was point number two?
Around that they are far less powerful, and I guess my rebuttal to that would be we can't.
So,
Yeah.
so power dynamic is not a determinant of international law. There is no rule saying that a less powerful state, there is no morality saying that a less powerful man should be punished less for murder and a more powerful man should be punished more for murder.
Right.
We judge murder on the heinousness of the crime, not the social situation of the murderer. The
Okay.
same thing applies to countries. Having less power doesn't allow you to get away with killing 1,400 people, raping them, grenading them, torturing them, hacking off their limbs, baking their babies. Okay, it's that simple.
Sure. And what
Uh,
about the idea that
and
was it called
proportionality, that was the
proportionality?
third one.
Yep. Yep.
Proportionality is not revenge. Revenge is illegal. Uh, Proportionality is proportionate to your war objectives. It is not that you came, killed, raped, and hacked off the limbs of 1,400 Israelis. So I'm going to proportionately hack off the limbs and rape 3,000, I don't know, 4 or 5,000 Palestinian
Yeah.
women. No, that's not how. Hamas did this. Hamas needs to be destroyed. What is proportionate to me having to destroy Hamas? That is how proportionality works. It is not the law of revenge.
Hmm.
People keep confusing proportionality with revenge. This is Walid comes and slaps Abhijit. Okay, Walid is much better, bigger built, and Abhijit has soft hands. These are hands, pudgy. Can you see my pudgy, chubby hands? They've never done a day's worth of hard labor in their life.
Hmm.
They're the softest hands. They're softer than Marie Antoinette's butt. Uh,
Okay.
and Abhijit's response to this is to stew. I'm very, very angry. I want to take it out by cooking an egg. I cook an egg with the correct application of heat. I don't, just because I'm angry with you, I don't go smash the egg and then insist it get boiled. Boiling the egg requires water. Hitting you back requires me going to the gym for 6 months and coming back and hitting you. That is revenge, but that is not proportionality. Proportionality is what I'm doing to the egg. Sometimes they're completely disconnected. I chose a disconnected example for that.
Right.
People keep confusing proportionality with revenge. It is not.
Okay.
In fact, there
Now,
are very
yeah.
clear rules that revenge is not a part of international law.
Hmm. So when you say that Hamas needs to be destroyed, firstly, do you think it can be?
With the current Israeli policy, no. Because they're doing exactly what America tried to do with the Taliban in Afghanistan, which is going after all the foot soldiers while the chiefs were all sitting out and chilling at ISI headquarters in Rawalpindi in Murid K. And uh, i- if you want to kill the snake, you have to cut off the head, and the head is sitting in Doha in Qatar and in Istanbul. You can't get to
Hmm.
them. I mean, you might try a bombing campaign later on, but remember, Doha is an American ally. Turkey is a NATO ally. Best of luck trying that.
Right. So the most realistic scenario is that this just happens every 2-3 years or every 5 years. We just have another Hamas attack. Israel go in, smash up to
No,
pieces.
no, no. I think what's going to happen right now is a bit more serious than that. I think uh, Hamas's ground projection is over. What you'll see is Hamas might be able to come back in, uh, carry out an occasional attack, killing 20, 30 Israelis once every 10 years or so. But what we'll see is a mutation of subcutaneous Hamas elements into something totally new.
Something worse.
Possibly, or maybe not. Maybe.
Are you saying like a Hamas reform or like a reformed Hamas?
No, because remember, Al Qaeda was replaced. The Baath Party was apparently very nasty, and when that idiot Paul Bremer sacked all Baath Party members, which was basically to get a job in Iraq, you need to be a member of the Baath Party. Everybody went and joined Al Qaeda because there were Sunnis in a Shia majority country, and that's what brought about the insurgency. Then you had Al Qaeda going, Al Qaeda in Iraq going places, and then that was replaced by ISIS, which was more terrifying but surprisingly less militarily threatening than uh, Al Qaeda. Surprise, surprise. You might see a morphing. It's very difficult to predict how power structures move like this, but we've never seen a 5:1 ratio of troops is to population. That almost 560,000 Israeli troops contrasted with 2.4 million Gazans. That kind of a ratio has never existed in the history of counterinsurgency. So let's see what happens out there. I mean, 560,000 troops in total. The actual deployed number might still be, say, 120, 130,000 per shift, which is still an incredible ratio. It look, they will attrit Hamas fatally in a sense, but they're not going to finish Hamas, and the leadership will mutate and they'll find new ways of attacking Israel.
Okay, fair enough. One more question on the Jew stuff. So another paradox I have seen is Indians don't like Christianity and Islam, but calling Jews as brothers.
Yes, Hindus, not Indians, Hindus don't like Christianity and Islam because they are proselytizing religions. Jews don't proselytize.
Right. And going back to that sort of when we were talking about the interconnectedness of the world and maybe there is like a right wing in here, would you say a right wing in Israel is connected to a right wing in India? Would you say that those two are aligned? Because that's not in the
Yeah.
Anglosphere. Although India kind of, I know they speak official language English, whatever, but I mean it's
No,
not.
India's never. It's kind of Anglosphere, kind of not really Anglosphere.
Yeah,
There's the chattering classes in India that are part of the Anglosphere, but 99% of India is
or
outside the
not.
Anglosphere.
S-
It's the idiom, the nuance, everything's very different.
Right.
But that's that. So India is not really Anglosphere, but yes, the Israeli right surprisingly doesn't reach out to the Indian right, except Netanyahu. But Netanyahu is not really extreme right by in the Israeli sense. That would be Shas and parties like that, which don't reach out. It's
Wasn't the one
really more
before him really Neftali? I can't remember the guy's name now. The
Naftali
one.
Bennett. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Was he really
He
right wing?
was. Yeah, he was, but he's not very keen on India, unlike Netanyahu, who is. Like Netanyahu and Modi are kind of like
Brothers,
brothers,
boys. Yeah,
two peas in a pod. They're the boys,
yeah.
kind of thing, and they've got their little bromance going for a long time.
Speaking of bromance, I would like to ask you: did that sort of clip when Rishi Sunak met Modi? Modi gives him a good, slap on the back. What do you make of that as an Indian?
Modi gives everybody a slap in the back, especially.
That's true. That's true. I've seen him do it to Mark Zuckerberg. I think
Look,
it was.
the good thing about Modi is he's an extremely warm person. I don't think I've met anybody who's actually met him who said he's cold. You can't become the Prime Minister of India and be getting 45% of the vote being cold. He gets along very well, and he's very warm to everyone. He's as warm to the Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea or some semicolon in the Pacific Ocean like Tonga or Tuvalu as he is to Barack Obama or Biden or Rishi
Whoever,
Sunak.
yeah.
He's equally warm to everyone. I think the only person he's not going to be warm to anymore is going to be Justin Trudeau.
Trudeau. I was just going to say that. Yeah, Trudeau.
Yeah.
But as an Indian, seeing Sunak, the Prime Minister of the UK, was that a significant moment for you, or is it just like whatever?
I was like, whatever.
But what about for most Indians seeing that? I mean, that's quite.
Yeah. So look, Indians love. They don't give a shit that Costa became Prime Minister of Portugal, who's of Indian origin, by the way.
Okay. I didn't know
Portugal
that.
Portugal had an Indian origin Prime Minister way before Britain did. Because Portuguese colonial policy was actually the reverse of racism. It was they believed in miscegenation. Ireland had a brown prime minister.
Yes, it's
before,
true. Yeah,
a gay brown
gay.
prime minister.
Gay, exactly.
Yeah, gay Indian prime minister before Britain. We've had several countries. Mauritius has had Indian prime ministers.
I think one of the
Guyana.
Guyana. That's the one,
yeah. Sir Anirudh. No, I think Anirudh Jagannath is Mauritius. But anyway, the
But
Guyanese
Britain is significant because it was the one that ruled over India. So there is that significance that almost full circle.
But it wasn't. Everybody was like, yeah, so what? Big deal. For me, I don't like Rishi Sunak, but
do you think this Suella Braverman thing really, this was an opportunity to sort of do something good for her? I think this was her sort of her moment, and then he was like, "You're fired." I think he lost a lot of respect for a lot of people, in their eyes.
I never had any respect for him. I've always known him to be a bit of a social climber. Look, you have to understand. I have all the social derision of a reasonably upper class Indian. So I apologize if I sound like an extremely classist piece of shit. I am.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah.
And for me, Rishi Sunak has never been. Something's always been wrong about him. I don't know what it is. It has probably nothing to do with his class. It has to do with a lot of duplicity that I've seen with him. I think he's a very duplicitous person. I've always believed he's a duplicitous person. We have a lot of mutuals who keep telling me about his duplicity. So for me, I was indifferent. But in India, there was some jubilation somewhere, but it was kind of more rhetorical on Twitter. Oh, look, now we've gone and conquered Britain. It wasn't some great national euphoria like happened in Kenya when Obama became prime minister, or in Italy when Sonia Gandhi thought she was going to become prime minister of India.
Right. Speaking of another Indian, Ramaswamy.
Yeah.
Talk to me. So talk to me about Ramaswamy.
I love the guy.
Yeah.
I think he's a first principles kind of guy. He doesn't fall into the trap of upbringing and brainwashing and conditioning. He derives an ab initio position on everything based on first principles. I think he's a less offensive version of Trump.
Yep.
but a more doctrinally and uh, wrong word. He doesn't follow doctrine. A more intellectual and structured version
Yes.
of a disruptor. I shouldn't call him Trump. I'll call him a disruptor, a systemic disruptor.
Mm, right, right. Do you think he could win?
No,
You know, so who's going to win the election? You think?
Biden.
Really?
I don't want him to win, but he's going to win. Yeah.
I
I think
didn't. I
I think the institutional capture, the corruption, it's just too deep. It's just too deep. I don't see the Republicans winning the next 3, 4 elections at least.
That's a big
Uh,
statement. That's
it I stand by it because uh, the kind of institutional capture, the complete institutional capture that they've done of law enforcement of everything,
mm,
the Republicans won't come back unless they have a woke left wing candidate, which I don't think the Republicans are going to have.
no, no, and I think the discussion earlier that we had when it comes to the sort of left wing that they have this propensity towards spreading themselves, whether it's across countries or within their own country in terms of capturing institutions. I don't understand why we keep saying right wing people are like rich and they have money and why can't they just buy this shit? I don't understand. Like Elon Musk put his money where his mouth is. He did it. Why is no one else doing this? I don't understand.
It's it's
Why?
it's it's critical mass. It's one against several
So,
hundred thousand.
hmm,
The easiest way of understanding this is uh, on how innovation is driven by MSMEs. It is
MSMEs.
actually micro, medium, and small sector,
Okay.
micro, medium, small sector enterprises, where each micro enterprise changes one component in your machine, which just improves performance by 0.5%.
Hmm.
But say, okay, the camera that you're staring into right now, there's the lens, there's the speakers to pick up, there's the lens cover for clarity and against, thumbprint, what's it called, thumb marks and finger marks and whatever. There's the speed of transmission into the computer and the digital signal processing. Now, if a big company did this, it would take them 5, 6 years to come up with something new. But each one of these manufacturers, assume Carl Zeiss manufactures the lens, Sony manufactures the digital signal processing at the back, whatever, whatever. Each one just does a 0.5%, and your camera is comprised of about 100 different things. A 0.5% improvement in every single thing still yields a 25 to 50% improvement in the overall camera when it is updated.
Hmm.
Right. It's like that. You can have this one
Cumulatively,
man,
yeah.
but that
Yeah.
cumulative force of too many people on the other side and the passivity of others refusing to intervene on your side. It's too much.
Could you give us some last optimistic words? Because I know a lot of the conversation has been quite, you know, I don't know. I don't know if it's pessimistic or if it's just real. I'm not saying you're being pessimistic, but you've given quite a real reflection of what you think is happening. So any words of hope, like Barack Obama, any words of hope from Abhijit? Try your hardest. Try your hardest. Let's see what you come up with.
I don't do optimism.
No, this is. I
Uh,
think as a right winger, you have to. You have to sell this now. Come on, you've got to be the thing you hate.
um,
Batman is Batman in the second the Dark Knight. You live long enough to become the villain. Whatever that saying is. The Dark Knight. You got to be the Dark Knight.
I know what. Aliens come and force us to unite
Yeah, yeah.
and
That's
set
the only
aside our
thing. Yeah,
differences.
yeah.
Yeah.
We need a danger that's bigger than anything we're facing right now to be like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe we should put this shit aside.
But then again, we had COVID and look what that did.
You're right. I think I heard a comedian make a joke about this that if there was like an alien invasion or an alien or whatever, The right wing would be like, oh, they're illegal or whatever it is, get them out. The left wing would be like, yeah, but they're minority. Yeah, but we haven't understood that. So, you could play the same game again. We
Yeah.
could play that same game again where actually
Yeah.
we end up, shooting ourselves in the foot. But there you go. All right. I mean, where can people find you? Where can do you have any plans to make any more videos or speeches, or if anything else coming up that people can sort of look forward to?
Well, I just keep searching my name on YouTube. I'm sure you'll get it. And there's my Twitter handle. I think I mostly use, people don't realize this, but Twitter is my substitute for shitting every morning. Most people go sit on their water closets and have a dump. I go on Twitter
Oh my
through the
gosh.
day and take a shit. It's yeah.
Fair enough. So check him, do public dumps on Twitter. I've really have enjoyed your videos, especially with Kushal, because obviously I know Kushal. You've got quite a breadth of knowledge around many different topics. So I guess I think you mentioned somewhere that you read like JSTOR for like fun. You don't have any. That for me, I was like, wow, this guy's committed. This guy's a bit crazy. If you read
But it's
JSTOR
not committed. It's I find it fun.
yeah, see, that's weird. Because
Yes.
I remember reading JSTOR.
I never I always said I caveated this saying I'm
Yeah,
a freak.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I respect that, because you know what it is. Someone has to read those damn
Yeah.
journals. So fair enough. So, Abhijit, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. Thank you everyone everyone who tuned in, and thank you for your questions. I've really enjoyed it. I'd love to have you back again, maybe with a different topic. Maybe we can do it in a couple of months or in a year's time. See if anything has changed on the ground or not. That'd be really cool. But thank you everyone for your time, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, Walid. This was fun. See you guys. Ciao.
Thanks.